With the days counting down until the first round matches of the 2025 U.S. Open at the Billie Jean King National Tennis Center, tennis fans at Citadel and Citadel Securities filled the room for another slice of Citadel. A keen set of Citadel eyes might have been able to see center court at Arthur Ashe Stadium from their perch high above Manhattan at the Citadel Conference Center. A slice of Citadel, a cross-section of the traders, analysts, engineers, and other experts who comprise the two firms founded by Ken Griffin, Citadel and Citadel Securities. Their supper sustenance? Slices of pizza from the venerable Johns of Bleecker Street, a Greenwich Village institution since 1929. The question on everyone's mind: can Jannik Sinner, fresh off his Wimbledon championship, defend his men's crown in New York? And can Aryna Sabalenka, the world #1 on the women's side, do the same? And for the 15 million global tennis fans, who will follow the tournament on the app powered by IBM and Watson X? How is technology and artificial intelligence changing the way players prepare and train, and viewers watch and follow the action unfolding over a fraught fortnight in Queens? Joining a slice of Citadel to offer answers to those questions were Patrick McEnroe, ESPN broadcaster, president of the International Tennis Hall of Fame, and former captain of the U.S. Davis Cup team, along with Cameron Stanhouse and Tyler Citadel from IBM Sports and Entertainment Partnerships team. IBM has been partnering with the U.S. Open for over 30 years, and its legacy electrifying and digitizing major events goes back to Big Blue's leadership under its legendary leader Thomas J. Watson Jr. at the 1960 Winter Olympics in Squaw Valley. Today, in addition to the U.S. Open, IBM AI technology and predictive analytics powers websites and apps for the Masters, Wimbledon, UFC, ESPN Fantasy Football, the Grammy Awards, and Formula One Scuderia Ferrari race team. One of IBM's dramatic breakthroughs came in Boca Raton, Florida in 1981, a few years before Ken Griffin entered Boca Raton High School, enamored with new forms of technology. As Ken shared during a recent visit to his high school, just a short distance away sat the company's General Systems Division Lab, where the first IBM PC was developed by a team of engineers and designers led by William C. Lowe and Philip Don Estridge. We now drop in on a slice of Citadel as the session focused on the U.S. Open, soon to be getting underway. Between slices of pizza from Johns of Bleecker Street, posing the questions to Patrick, Cameron, and Tyler was Josh King, Citadel's head of corporate affairs. Let's join the session now.
First, the most important duty at hand, we have our slices of pizza. We have Johns of Bleecker Street, right from my home neighborhood in Greenwich Village. Patrick, tell us about how pizza impeded your tennis game over the years.
Well, first of all, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I see we have a Stanford man over here, so I'd like to see that. My freshman year of college, I think I had pizza about 3 times a week during the week at around midnight. So when the springtime came around for the season, all of a sudden my coach looked at me and said, I think you've been eating too much pizza. So that was where I got the wake-up call that I needed to cut back.
So, Patrick, now getting serious about tennis a little bit. I've followed your posts on X throughout the year. You are at these Grand Slams. You're at Australia in January. You're at Roland Garros in May. You're at Wimbledon in June. And now you're coming to Queens next week. Give us a few names on both the men's and women's side that we might want to tune our IBM apps to keep an eye on.
You know, obviously you've got Sinner and Alcaraz, which are far and away the 2 top male players. I think Ben Shelton's ready to make another big move. He has played well in the majors. He just won in Canada. I love his attitude. I love the energy he brings to the table. The women's side, I'm not going to say it's unpredictable, but it's a little less predictable than it is for the men at the moment. Although in each of the 3 majors this year, on the women's side, there's been an American player on the women's side in the final or the winner. Madison Keys won her first ever major, which was great to see her do that after many years of kind of not living up to expectations. Coco Gauff wins major number 2, her first one on red clay. And then Amanda Anisimova suffered maybe the most brutal loss I've ever seen in a major final, losing the dreaded double bagel, as we say in tennis terms. 6-0, 6-0
Oh, God.
on Wimbledon center court.
If you look at the calendar, round 1, August 24th, getting through to the finals, I guess, on September 7th.
Right.
What is the grind for all these rounds that Jannik is going to have to go through? Where is he on day 1, and where is he going to be by day 14?
Those of you who watched Wimbledon, where he won his first Wimbledon title, he almost lost in the quarterfinals. In fact, he was down 2-0, and it was 2-2 in the third set, and his opponent, Grigor Dimitrov, pulled his pectoral muscle, had to retire the match. So generally you'll have a match or two for even the top players where you get tested, maybe you go to 5 sets, but this is why they all have these incredible teams around them now. They have their coach, they have another coach, they have a physio person, they have a trainer, they have a nutritionist. You know, Djokovic has been doing these things for years, kind of raising the bar, not only for what the players do on the court, but I think more so for what they do off the court. The recovery for the top players has become probably the biggest part of it, their diet, what they're doing in between matches with flexibility work and strength work. So generally speaking, these are some of the most, incredibly conditioned athletes on the planet, because to play, like you said, win 7 matches, it can be brutally hot. It could be a windy day. You're never quite sure of the conditions. So the players have to prepare for all that.
Talking about center court, well above center court is the broadcast booth at ESPN. You're going to have to be in top form and top shape for what you're going to have to deliver the product for fans next week. What do you do to prepare for the next 14 days?
Well, I go to my US Open IBM app. They keep us covered with all that they do at Wimbledon, particularly in the US Open, and there's so many big events. So, I'm obsessed with the game. I've been lucky enough to spend my whole career involved in tennis on a professional side. So I started playing in my local club when I was 3 years old, hitting against the wall. I used to ride my tricycle to go hit against the wall before I could walk. So I just follow it even when I'm not quote unquote working. But I run with my brother a tennis academy here in Randall's Island in New York City. So I'm really around the game basically every day. My wife is not always that happy about it. She says our life revolves around the tennis tour. But
when you're not watching her on stage, you're watching her perform.
Well, that's the other part of it. Yeah, she's a singer. We got married, of course, as all tennis players do in December, because that's the only downtime for tennis players. People may like me, may not like me in the broadcast booth, but as far as I feel, when I'm in the broadcast booth, I'm undefeated. I've never lost. Unlike when I played, trust me, I lost a lot there.
Cameron, IBM is undefeated, basically, with all these properties that we've been talking about. You made your debut at the All England Tennis Club a couple months ago, new to this job somewhat after coming from Politico, where you were director of partnerships as well. You saw Jannik Sinner win and Iga Swiatek win. What was your first experience at Wimbledon like? What learning from London are you going to bring back to New York next week?
Well, first of all, can I just do a shameless plug? Will everybody take out their phone really fast? Because you can't know what we're talking about unless you have the app downloaded. So download the US Open app. My experience at Wimbledon was my first, as you said, tennis, I'd say, arrangement, although we sponsor a lot of sports, as you guys already saw. So my first weekend was the UFC 320 fight, and then I was on a plane to go see some stuff for Ferrari. So I was deeply ingrained in all of our sports activities, basically from day one. But what I saw was truly IBM's integration and how we work with partners. So I think one of the things that makes our partnerships so unique is that we don't view them as a sponsorship. We're not in the business of slapping a logo on something. It's truly about what's that year-round integration and continual conversation that we're having. So Wimbledon, I was surprised to see, we actually have an office at the All England Lawn and Tennis Club where we have a team of people that sit year-round talking about digital transformation and ideating around what the new features we're going to have in the app. And so Tyler's one of the incredible members of our team that work on that on the US side. But it was truly understanding the depth of the partnership. And then my favorite part of Wimbledon is if you ever get a chance to go on the behind the scenes tour, you go to something called the Bunker, which is essentially 3 rooms of people full wearing IBM polos, sitting side by side, going all over every single stat, every single thing that's coming in, making sure that the feeds are up live, that we have 100% runtime, that nothing's going down. And so just the partnership that we have with these brands was something that was so surprising and also so exciting. And one of the things I'm looking forward to seeing translate to the US Open.
What are you actually trying to do as you digitize for the fan experience?
Yeah, I think across the board, we approach all of our partnerships and how we're digitizing them the same way we would a commercial business partner, so it's no different. we're, one, looking at what the goals and strategy are going to be, and then two, we partner again side by side to design, develop, and deliver world-class digital experiences. And I think one of the things that's so great about all of our partnerships, the ones we've had for 30 plus years, is there's always a nod to history and legacy in everything that they do, but we're still taking it to the next level. So at Wimbledon, they still create, there's the live scoreboard that people are changing and constantly, right? But you can go into the app and you can see exactly what's happening and know, connect with Match Chat and do live updates of what's going on. So it's really, again, that sustained partnership, but always combining legacy with looking towards the future.
Talking about combining legacy and looking toward the future, Tyler, you were overseeing the digital experience at Accenture before you came over to IBM 6 years ago to work on the technology program for the sports and entertainment partnerships. I'm curious, from F1 to golf to tennis, how have you seen technology evolve in such a relatively short amount of time?
It's definitely evolved, and I think especially over the last few years. I mean, just look at a year or two ago with ChatGPT or OpenAI, and just the way we work, the way we interact with these kind of technologies. AI has been around there for years. We've been on journey. We've been on a long journey. We've been doing AI for many years as a company, but it really didn't become trendy and become at the forefront until the last few years. And now my role and my team's role is how do we bring great fan experiences using AI and being able to surface up the data in ways that fans understand and actually can interact with it and that they're becoming more and more comfortable with.
All right, we're going to dive into the US Open now. So, Patrick, what makes the US Open so special? And in your case, growing up in Douglaston, how did the energy from that tournament shape your competitive ethos as a player?
Yeah, great questions. Actually, when I was a kid, I first went to Forest Hills, where the old West Side Tennis Club, which is where most of you are much younger than I am, probably never heard of. And it was like kind of just a nice old-fashioned tennis club in the middle of Forest Hills. And that's where the US Open was played until the late 70s. So I actually first went there as a youngster watching there. When my brother first won it, was one of the first years in '78 that it had moved to Flushing Meadows, where it is now. And it was really kind of surreal to be around my brother winning the US Open when I was a teenager at the time. But the Open is about New York. It's the energy of New York. The night matches are really what I think galvanizes the public and the players. There's something about walking out on Arthur Ashe Stadium. They thought they'd never be able to fill almost 24,000 seats when they first built the stadium. People said, you're crazy to build a stadium that big for tennis. All the other majors are about 14, 15,000. Those are the biggest tennis stadiums in the world. And sure enough, in the first few years, they would sell it out really just for the semifinals and the finals. Now it's pretty much sold out, from the first night session on. It's really amazing how it's grown. And I think it's because it's just the buzz of New York, the electricity of New York. So the US Open became not just a great tennis tournament, but sort of an entertainment vehicle as well.
So Cameron, that entertainment vehicle that Patrick talked about, IBM has been partnering with the US Open for about 30 years. And just like Patrick or some of these top-ranked players now have to improve and up their game year to year, your partners and your fans are demanding that you bring a better game to center court every year. You've got to have better AI, more efficient machine learning, truer voice technology reproduction. What are you doing behind the scenes during the rest of the year to make sure that when round one starts next week, you've got the best product above the court?
Yeah, I think going back to what I said earlier, it's about that year-long partnership and communication so that we're never off. But one of the things that's so unique about our partnership with the US Open and these 30-year partnerships that we have is the amount of data that we can have to help us with storytelling. So quick facts on US Open, every single point is about 156 data points that we're looking at. If you look at the course of the 2024 US Open, 7 million data points. And if you go into what 20 years of that data looks like that we have access to, we're at, over 140 million data points. So we're taking not only what the future looks like, but again, looking at the history to be able to derive new insights and figuring out what's going to be engaging to them. It all goes back to what the fans want to see, so really understanding that audience and how we communicate them, but looking at the data on our side and how we bring it to life through our Watson X platforms and using AI to really generate new and exciting insights and features.
Talking about all those data points. If you are a coach of Jannik Sinner, Taylor Fritz today, where are you getting your data, and how are you helping the player use it to their best advantage?
Well, you're looking at the two different reasons you're looking at it. One is you mentioned both of them. The first one is, how do I improve my own performance? So you talk about spin rate, you talk about serve placement. You can gather all this data, and you can say, okay, on the pressure points, what's a pressure point? A pressure point would be when you're down on your serve, 15-30. 30 all would be a pressure point, 30-40, obviously a break point. And your coach can literally get that information. Okay, how did we serve on the pressure points? And just go through it like that. So maybe you're missing your target. Okay, we need to go out to the practice court. We need to work on our serve direction. So part of it is looking at what can I do as a player to improve my performance. And the other side of it, I call it more the analytical side, is how you're dissecting your opponent. So what are the tendencies of my opponent? And then it's about kind of taking away those strengths and weaknesses, if you can, at the crucial moments in a match.
Who are the data packagers and providers for the top players and coaches? Do you get it from them, or
they get it from them? They get it from the tournament. So they get it from there's various companies that do some of this. We have the replay technology, for example, called Hawkeye.
Right, Hawkeye.
Which does the replays, and they do a lot of the spin rate, a lot of that analytics. IBM obviously does all these numbers for the break points converted, where do the tendencies, where can you go on the break points against you. So then as a player, you have to be aware that, okay, I got some more information, but I don't want sometimes too much information, right? Because you want to be able to play. It's still a game that you're just kind of playing off instinct. That's what makes it interesting, because I think it's forcing the players to actually evolve more as all-around players, do more, be able to do more, execute more types of shots. And that's what I see when I see especially Sinner and Alcaraz. Like they're attempting shots that we used to think wasn't even possible. And then what happens is the other players start to say, well, I better start to do that. And then the young kids, like we coach at our tennis academy, they start trying these shots. And I used to say, why are you doing that? That's the stupidest shot ever. And now I'm like, Alcaraz just did it in the final of Wimbledon. So, okay, try it.
All right, Tyler, why don't you take us under the hood of what's really going on in that bunker? We can bring up your slides if you want to step over to the screen. Okay. Give folks a view of really the technology stack that's underneath of all this.
Sure. Thank you, Josh. So to set some of the background and context, what our team does, so IBM Consulting, they design, develop, build, support, maintain, manage, whatever term you want to throw out there, host, secure, as I probably already said, the US Open app and website. And there's really two different work streams. There's core delivery, right? There's basically make sure there's an app. There's an app, great. Can scores come through the app? Is data flow through the app? Are people able to access the draws? Are they able to see which players are on what courts? So that's part of that work stream. The other work stream is innovation. And innovation is more about how do we bring AI to the forefront? How do we showcase AI? How do we create great fan-facing experiences? So I want to talk about a couple of new features that we're rolling out this year. So the first one is key points. What key points are basically, our code name is too long, didn't read. So you come to an article on usopen.org, and as a fan, you're able to click on this button that says generate the key points built with IBM Watson X. I'll go a little bit into what IBM Watson X is, but it's our enterprise data and AI platform. So fans are able to get short, concise bullet snippets about that article. So we're able to create content using generative AI and able to give fans how they want to consume that content. Do they want to read it long form, or here's another option, short form. And then the next feature we actually introduced at Wimbledon, but we're also rolling it out for the US Open. This is using Watson X Orchestrate, and it's a way to interact and ask questions and really dive deep into that data. So you can ask preemptive prompts. You could ask, what's the likelihood to win? You can also ask, what's their head-to-head? How many aces does this player have? Or you can write your own questions. You can ask how to pronounce this Swedish player's last name, and it will give you that response back. Then next, I'm going to talk about is live likelihood to win. So in 2021, so we've been doing this for about 4 years now, we did a pre-match likelihood to win. What the likelihood to win takes into account is recent performance. momentum? How is that player playing coming into the US Open? How are they playing throughout the US Open? Because the rankings for the WTA and ATP, it's a rolling average of 52 weeks. So if you're a player and you're playing really, really well in January, but you're not playing well now, your ranking might not really reflect that. So we wanted to really figure out what projection can we make about who might upset this match or who might win this match based on all the recent performance and data. So it analyzes all the hard data or the hard stats that Patrick mentioned, spin rate, serve speed, win percentages. But it also analyzes maybe what Patrick says on air or what he writes an article about, because we're able to understand natural language and understand unstructured data. So we understand trusted sources, and we're able to analyze that and come up with a projection score. This year, we're introducing live likelihood to it. So it's going to update after every single point, and you can follow along within IBM Slam Tracker, which is the premier scoring application on the app.
So Patrick, Tyler has just shown us the present and the future of tennis. As we wrap up, before we get to everyone's questions, let's take just a minute to walk back into the past of this great game. In your capacity as president of the International Tennis Hall of Fame, next week you're going to preside over the induction of the class of 2025, the legendary Maria Sharapova and the Bryan brothers, Bob and Mike. I talked with your predecessor, Stan Smith, on my podcast a couple of years ago, got a sense of what the hall is all about. But what's special about this class of inductees, and more broadly, what is the experience today of going to the hall in Newport?
We've got the old traditional grass courts. They're in great, pristine condition. There's a beautiful museum that's open 365 days a year to the public, which we just did a big renovation on. So actually has a lot more digital technology now there, in addition to the stuff I love, the old rackets and the old outfits. And we have an area that has all the cans of tennis balls from all over the world, in the last 100 years. So it's really a cool place to visit. But the induction is what it's all about. The ultimate honor in tennis is what we call it. And, Sharapova, an amazing career, winning Wimbledon as a 17-year-old, beating Serena Williams in the final. And then Serena took it out on her for the rest of their careers. And then she won all, 4 other majors throughout her career. And then the Bryan brothers, who I know very well, they also went to Stanford, played on the Davis Cup team when I was a captain for many years, are identical twins, for those of you that don't know. One's a lefty, one's a righty, and they have an amazing history. They used to play in all the junior tournaments in Southern California where they grew up. Both their parents were tennis instructors, and their parents, when they would get to the finals of the singles, which they did often as young kids, one of them would not play. So they never play each other. They'd let one win by default, and then the next time the other one would win. So they have this amazing, chemistry between them, and they really kind of revolutionized the popularity of doubles, I think, making it, they had a whole legion of fans, and they did the big chest bump, and they won, 20 majors in their career, including winning the gold medal in doubles, winning the Davis Cup for the United States in 2007. So they're like the ultimate team players in an individual sport. And that's what I love about them. They're just great ambassadors for the game.
Very good. Let's get to everyone's questions. Who has a question for any of our guests? Yes. Well, again, bring a microphone over to you.
Something we strive for at Citadel is continuous improvement. So, Patrick, my question to you is, when you're coaching a player throughout the course of a season, how do you juggle trying to improve either like a ground stroke or reaction to opponent strategies or something like that, specifically in terms of a player's own game?
Well, it's a great question, because you're obviously all in a very competitive business yourselves, and tennis is very competitive. But that's kind of the ultimate challenge for players and their coaches is, when do you work on things specifically? And the great players, I think, always are looking to evolve and improve. Roger Federer was trying to figure out, how do I hit my high backhand here better, because Rafael Nadal's picking on him. I'm, at the time, the greatest player on the planet. So the great players are looking for ways to constantly improve. But because tennis is basically all year, the schedule, for the players have to kind of find times in their schedule where they can say, Coco Gauff's a great example. Like, she's had all sorts of problems with her serve. So to change the technique on the serve is extremely complicated, takes months. because you can't be thinking about that when you're out competing, playing matches. She's found a really good balance of being able to do that. It's still a work in progress for her. Depending on what you're trying to work on, you might need a month where you say, we need to take a month off. Or, the end of the year is when players generally, November, December, have a little bit of time off. Some of the top players, because they're so good and they make so much money playing in a lesser amount of tournaments, they'll say, I'm going to take like Nadal used to take a huge break after the Australian Open. Not only, it's not just about your tennis game, but it's also, well, can I improve my foot speed? Can I improve my flexibility? Can I do those things necessary to make improvements? And tennis is a game, it's humbling because you lose all the time. I tell parents at our academy all the time, if you really want to be in this, it's a long journey, and be ready for the ups and downs, and let your kid be ready for it, because when you're out there as a tennis player, you're on your own. And so that can be much more difficult to handle those ups and downs. When I was competing as a player, of course, I would always try to find ways to get a little better, but I would also do things that weren't necessarily related to tennis. Can I get better in my 40-meter sprint? Can I get better in the little extra we do on the court? Can I go from 13 seconds to 12.2 seconds? So those things give you a little like, hey, I'm improving, but it may not come out in the wins and losses right away. So you got to kind of keep that in perspective.
Yes, in the back.
Thank you for being here today. Throughout your career, who has been the most formidable opponent that you've faced, and what made them stand out in particular?
Well, I was lucky enough or unlucky enough, depending on how you look at it, to play my brother, and he whipped my butt a couple times. Boris Becker, who I had a decent record against. I played him in a couple of big tournaments. But the guy, and I did play Pete Sampras just twice, and I could kind of keep it relatively close. He would always win because of his great serve. But the guy that just beat the living bejesus out of me every time I played him was Mr. Andre Agassi. And the reason was because he played a similar style of game that I did, just exponentially better. So I played him once on center court at Wimbledon and just got absolutely destroyed. And I played him once in the third round at the French Open, which for me to get to the third round, because clay wasn't my best surface, was a big accomplishment. I was so excited. I'm going to play Agassi on center court. And one of my buddies from Stanford, a couple of my buddies who were on the team with me at Stanford were there. And I remember looking up at them when I was down 6-2, 6-2, 4-love. And Agassi was just toying with me. He could have easily hit a winner on the second or third shot in each point, but he just kept making me run. And me being the idiot that I was, I just kept running, And so I turned up and I won a point at some point, 4-love in the third set, and my buddies clapped, and I looked up and I said, I'm literally a human punching bag right now for this guy. So he was the hardest opponent just for me to play against, because still, in my view, he's still the greatest ball striker, just clean ball striker off both sides that I've ever seen. Djokovic hits the ball amazing, much faster, much more nimble, better all-around player. And Federer was, a god with what he could do with the ball, but his backhand wouldn't be as big, as powerful. Nadal obviously had an incredible intensity about him. But to me, still Andre had the incredible timing that he could hit, a little bit like Sinner's doing now. Sinner's kind of taking it up a notch, because not only, to me, Sinner's a cross between Agassi and Djokovic. He has the ball striking ability off both wings, taking it early on the rise, and he has the speed of Djokovic, which is kind of scary.
Let's take one more question if we haven't. Maybe in the back.
Hi, thank you for being here. This question is not for you, but for Cameron and Tyler. I hope that's okay.
Good. Yes.
So I just want to start off by saying, thank you for all the work that's being done on the technology front. I think as personally, as a more passive person when it comes to sports, I think there's key things that I always kind of look for that attracts me to it. So data points are actually very helpful, because you're like, wow, this is so impressive, this is very cool. The question that is a bit selfish, candidly, is can we start to see this technology elsewhere in other sports and other arenas?
Do you want to be on our sales team?
Got a job for you.
I think we have our great partnerships in what we've done in tennis. We just started working with Ferrari. The whole basis of our partnership was enhancing the fan experience. They have 400 million Tifosi, which is their diehard fans, and giving them a place where they actually can experience their team with all of the data and facts that they want to see. So fan experience is what we do, but we keep it really curated to a great set of partners. But it's also a big part of our commercial business as well, is trying to figure out how we spread the gospel of what we've done for these different partners. They're a living, breathing case study of what we can do, and that's the intent, is to bring more of this to other sports properties.
Tyler Citadel, Cameron Stanhouse, Patrick McEnroe, thank you so much for joining us on A Slice of Citadel today.
Thank you.